1. I have been living in a mixed-sex student house for a few years now. A month ago, one of our old male roommates moved out and a new guy moved into his place. We all have small separate rooms but share the bathroom and kitchen. At first, the guy seemed fine. He said he liked cleaning and was honestly quite charming. I'm a bit of a chatterbox, so I took on the role of warming him up to the place. I showed him where we keep the stuff, explained the cleaning schedule, and let him know that although we have our own cooking utensils, we usually just share them for convenience. He seemed happy with that, and even brought his electric kettle for the rest of us to use as well. Life seemed good, for a while at least. We were both night owls, so we bumped into each other in the kitchen and chatted a lot during cooking. However, our conversations started getting weird and uncomfortable. One time he mentioned me having a very vegetarian diet, later following with a lecture how he eats meat every day and I should too. Num num num. I just shrugged and said that I'm doing fine with my veggies, but since he works out a lot, it's normal for him to eat a lot of meat. I let him try a bit of guacamole when he suddenly offered me a small plate of a dish from his country. He said it was rice fried with potatoes and spices. I took a few bites, and he suddenly decided to mention that it contains pork as well. It wasn't that weird, though. 2 days later, he came up to me out of nowhere, asked when I'm cooking something for him. When he saw me being very taken aback, he tried to play it off as a joke. Me being petty, I made him a bowl of soup that was way too spicy for him and watched him suffer while trying to finish it. I thought he learned his lesson. Apparently not. Strange remarks continued. He noticed one of my plants getting dry. I must have forgotten to water it. He started laughing that I must enjoy killing things and that he used to be the same way back at his family home. He would buy farm animals only to kill them a few days later, and it was one of his favorite activities. I tensed up and said that I don't think these things are comparable at all. He shrugged it off as if he hadn't just said something so out of pocket. Then, without asking, he grabbed my water jug and started watering my plants with it. Then he just left it empty on the counter and walked out. I was too dumbfounded to say anything. On a few separate occasions, he also started commenting on how good, well-behaved, shy, submissive, etc. I was. Every time I protested, but all he said back was that I looked like it, so I must be it. My last straw was him taking one of my decorative hand towels and permanently staining it. Our cleaning cloths apparently had ran out, and instead of buying new ones and asking to split the cost like we've been doing all the time, he decided to take the towel and use it as a cleaning rag. In the morning, I told him that we will need to talk about something in the evening. During that whole evening, he hid in his room. When I confronted him about it the next day, he literally stood over me and started yelling at me. He said that it's just a stupid towel and that it's meant for cleaning anyways, and that I'm stupid for yelling at him for cleaning. I told him not to cut me off and derail the conversation. My point was that he had to be respectful of all the belongings in this house, shared or not. Then he started yelling even louder that me and the third roommate, also a girl, are not allowed to shower when he sleeps, because that's so disrespectful to him. I told him that I will not stand for this and that all he's doing is trying to change the topic. Then he scoffed at me and said that if I don't want my stuff touched, then I shouldn't keep it in the kitchen. So it's basically my fault for keeping it there, right? I can't write the whole conversation here, but those were the most important points. After that, he noticed me holding my phone in my hand. I had secretly turned on sound recording because I was getting very scared. He yelled at me, "Why do I need my phone right now?" So I told him that he knows damn well why. He left the room acting as if I had just offended his whole family. After that, he pretended to ignore me, but in reality he was glaring at me all the time. He would also obnoxiously slam all the cabinets and loudly sigh any time I entered the kitchen. For context, ever since he moved in, he was using my pots while cooking. They are very characteristic red enamel pots that can also double as deep frying pans. I understood why he liked them so much. These are damn good pots. I didn't have a problem with it, but I noticed that they were often left dirty in the sink overnight, or only cleaned on the inside and left to dry with all the dirt and gunk still left on the outside. He would also leave out his dirty dishes on the counters that would just sit there all day, as if he was checking if one of us girls would clean up after him. The dishes and cutlery he washes are often left with visible food chunks and sauce stains. He also leaves all the knives blade side up on the dryer, as if he's leaving out little traps and messes for me and the other roommate. And then he goes around the house and obnoxiously announces how messy the house is because one of us accidentally left some hair in the bathtub. I see how it is. He's pedantic only when it comes to me and the roommate cleaning. The second straw for me was when he hid one of my pots in his room all day, and when asked to bring it back, he not only gave it back dirty but also without the lid. Then he quickly closed his room and left the house so that I couldn't mention the lid. I don't think he realized they were specifically my pots, but I'm sure he did all the petty hiding because he saw me using them a lot. So I played a waiting game. As soon as he brought out the lid, thinking he's victorious, my plan had started. I took every single one of my belongings out of the kitchen as soon as he wasn't looking. I did it in a way that he couldn't tell whether it was me or the other roommate. Now the kitchen is barren, barely anything to cook with, no pretty towels. Luckily, the other roommate doesn't mind because she has her own stuff also hidden in her room. I know all of it is just a petty game, but I feel like he's trying to control the whole house. I decided to nip this behavior in the bud, which he obviously didn't like. His demeanor is still very hostile, especially now that all the good kitchen utensils are gone. I feel his eyes on my neck all the time I'm outside my room. But I have to leave. I have to go to the bathroom and cook for myself. I have to take showers. He still doesn't speak to me, but I feel the tension. I know he's going to blow up one day, and it feels sooner than later. I don't have enough evidence to show my landlord yet, so kicking the guy out is not an option. All I can do is keep the phone on me and record everything. I'm scared, but I don't know what else to do. I don't think I can live like that long term. But I really like this place, and I don't want to move out. All my friends and family know what's been going on. I have a support system just in case. I will not be chased away, even if I'm scared as all hell. 2. My roommate and I were part of a circle of gaming friends online. Moving in together started out as a joke that gradually became reality because we both wanted to move and the timing lined up. We were both moving to a new state, but I can work remotely from anywhere and I make pretty decent money, so I could afford a 2-bedroom apartment by myself. I didn't really need a roommate, but she was coming from a not great living situation, so I told her that she could move in and find a job once she got here. I didn't mind covering rent for a few months. She also moved in with basically nothing. I bought her a bed, a desk, and several other things. I told her I didn't need her to pay me back, and that just finding a job and splitting rent and bills would suffice. We lived in that apartment for a year, and despite checking in with her and offering her a lot of help, she never found a job. I offered to help her with her resume, to help her find things in the area. Her ID expired, and she was offered help to take care of that more than a few times, not only by me, but by friends that lived close by. Occasionally, she would look for jobs or send out applications for about a week, and then it would stop. The apartment itself ended up being a crap hole. That is a whole separate story, but basically my life was hell the entire time we lived there. But in the year I lived there, rent ended up skyrocketing and becoming so outrageous that, to make a long story shorter, I ended up buying a house. I could still afford it on my own, but finances became much tighter. So I had a serious conversation with my roommate about finding a job. I gave her an ultimatum that she needed to find a job and start contributing financially by the spring, or she needed to find somewhere else to live. She never found a job, and I don't think she even looked for more than a few days. It's on me for never finding the spine to actually tell her to leave. But I thought we were still friends, and I didn't want to send her away with nowhere to go. However, my partner and I had started talking about him moving in with me, and so I finally told her she needed to find a new place by the end of the year. It was a surprisingly good conversation. She told me she was talking to her partner about moving in with him. She left to visit him earlier this month, around the 9th. He lives about 6-ish hours away, so she flew to see him. She finally asked for help to get an ID when she needed one to board a plane. She's completely stopped responding to all of my messages, hasn't told me when she's coming home or what her plan is. All her stuff is still here. I know she's alive and well because we're in a Discord server that she posts in. The most she's ever helped with was doing the dishes when I asked her to and watching my dog and cats on occasion when I was traveling. I appreciated those things and still do, but I'm pretty hurt and confused by the whole thing, and this whole situation just sucks. 3. I'm a sophomore in college this year, and my first year I was fortunate enough that I moved in a double without another person, so this was my first experience with a roommate. Selection was random, things started out fine, he was nice enough, and we were both night owls, who called our friends, so I thought it was a great match at first. However, quickly things took a sharp turn. First off, man snores louder than anyone I've ever heard. He sometimes sounds like he's suffocating, so much so that the first night I woke him up to make sure he was okay. It's so bad that I have to wear AirPods the entire night or I don't get sleep. What makes it worse is that it's so inconsistent and sometimes will be quiet and then get so loud I can feel the vibrations. Bro also moans, burps, and farts in his sleep, so there's that. Then it was the smell. At first I thought it might just be me or something and that maybe I needed to wash my clothes more. But then I noticed that it was mainly a problem when he was in the room. Especially at night when he takes his clothes off, it gets really potent. It smells like someone took a really bad crap and then tried to cover it up with air freshener, but ended up making the room smell like crap and flowers. The smell is especially bad on his clothes, which I'm pretty sure he almost never washes. He wears the same outfit pretty much every single day, and bro, he has these white shorts, and they literally have brown stains around the thigh area and on the back. It got so bad, I have to make him put his clothes in a closed-up cupboard so they don't smell. The other day, when I finally got an air sanitizer that almost completely warded the smell, I could still smell it a bit, and then I looked on his bed. Side note, when he came, he didn't have any sheets or towels, so I lent him mine, and I gave him a spare pillow. None of which he's ever washed. The pillow I gave him now has brown residue on it as well. He also started taking some of my washcloths without asking. On his bed, he left his underwear, which had dark brown stains all over. Hell no. Finally, the bathroom. Every time this man sits down on the toilet, he gets these nasty flakes and residue all over the seat. Also, this red liquid that I think might be blood. He also leaves crap residue in the toilet bowl, both of which I've had to clean up myself. I talked to my RA, and we're gonna have a meeting about it to discuss some of these things, but the thing that angers me the most is that he has never offered to help clean or anything. We had an ant problem earlier this year, not entirely his fault. I had some soda cans and crumbs on my desk too, however, he was taking my food without asking and leaving half-eaten containers of food just lying around under his bed and in his desk. Spilled drinks multiple times and didn't clean it up, and had a lot of open drinks and stuff too. I'm the one who cleaned it up, and bro didn't do anything to help or offer or even say thank you. If I don't clean or take out the trash, it just doesn't get done. I've come to him about some of these things and it's somewhat improved, but more often than not he'll keep his word for a couple of days, and then go back to the same stuff. I don't like to judge or ridicule or dehumanize anyone, but I'm at my wit's end, and every time I see him, my body just floods with rage. 4. 5 months ago, I moved into a shared house with a friend of mine, whom I'll refer to as my roommate for anonymity. This roommate only comes home on weekends for work, so it could have been a very easy living situation. It's worth noting that he was already renting the house before I joined, which sometimes made him believe he has authority over me. About a month and a half ago, he and I had a conversation where he asked me to leave the apartment. It came a bit out of nowhere, so I asked him why. The reason was vague and kept changing. Or he just had a lot of complaints, I wasn't sure. His first big complaint was that I wasn't doing enough around the house. I should mention that I cook, clean, do laundry, maintain the garden, and even help cut down a tree in that garden. His second complaint was that I'm myself? Apparently, I make him very uncomfortable, and even the way I walk is a problem. His third complaint was financial. He claimed I missed a rent payment, which I denied by showing him my bank statements. He also said I was using too much electricity, even though since I've been there, I've helped save about €100 on electricity. So, he concluded that I should leave, even though I wasn't really thrilled about it. Anyway, time passed, and here we are this weekend. The roommate brings it up again, blaming me for the exact same things and asking me to leave. I explained to him that first, it's not easy to find housing even in France, and second, he has no legal right to evict me as his whim. He got angry, so I asked him to calm down, stating that I would keep looking for a place of my own. Moving forward, it's the next morning around 5:30 a.m., and I wake up because something touched my shoulder and was pushing me in my bed. Needless to say, I jumped up, and when I turned around, I let out a scream because it was my roommate, one of his hands under my pillow, and the other somewhere on the bed, and his face and body were far too close to mine. He then asked me to move over and make space for him, saying he wouldn't stay long and wouldn't take up too much room. I was a bit stunned, but I told him no, and that he had no business in my bed. He insisted twice more until I finally told him to get out of my room, which he eventually did. The next day, after a sleepless night and a day where my body was still trembling and still is as I'm writing this, I finally wrote him a message explaining in detail what he had done, that it was not okay, and that I'd be viewing an apartment this weekend to get away from him. Special thanks to a friend's mom who, upon hearing my story, decided to rent me an apartment. The roommate's reaction to this message, honestly, I didn't expect this from him, was complete denial, from even entering my room to trying to get into my bed. He also called me crazy and left the house angry, slamming doors on his way out. I'm not sure what to think of the whole situation anymore. If you have any thoughts or questions, I'd be glad to hear them. Update. I went back to the apartment to start prepping for the move, since my roommate is now on the other side of France for work, as he is 5 days a week. I was surprised to find a note on the table. I expected more complaints or more apologies from him, but surprisingly none of that. Knowing I was leaving, he wrote me a letter explaining everything. He explained how all this time he was projecting all his distress onto me, and how his ridiculous expectations about cleaning were just an excuse to take his frustrations out on someone else. My roommate doesn't know how to handle his emotions, so he chooses to act in the worst way possible, burying everything below the surface to be a strong man. He also confessed that he had just lied to me several times out of fear. He had actually been in love with me all this time, but was also extremely jealous of any male friends who dared cross my path. He had denied all this in the past when I brought up my suspicions. He admitted to having an alcohol problem, as well as regretted not listening to me when I pointed it out. He mentioned he had experienced memory lapses and disturbing behaviors several times after drinking too much. He promised to see psychologists and attend support groups to address his addiction issues, learn to manage his distress, and improve his life. As much as I'm glad he finally seems to be reflecting on himself, it doesn't undo his previous actions in any way. P.S. I have my apartment, the move is underway, and I'm almost out of this situation. Hellfreezer's note. This was an update to the original story. So I did initially have an outro, essentially calling much of what the OP put there. Although I've got to say to the roommate, dude, we all want a little hot cock now and again, but it doesn't mean you get to crawl into bed with someone without their permission. That's just not done. 5. For context, I'm a 26-year-old man, and my wife is also 26. And I moved in with her and her mother earlier this year. We have been married for 4 years now and used to live in a big city. We bounced around from rental to rental due to my job being at a college campus, and us being allowed to live in staff housing. In 2022, we were no longer able to live on campus, so we lived in a rental home in 2022, and then a small apartment in 2023. I left that job at the college in mid-2023 and found a temporary job in the city. We both agreed that we were paying way too much in rent for jobs that were no longer paying the bills and moving us closer to our goals of paying off our debts and starting a family. So that's what made us move in with her mom. The goal was to aggressively put money towards our debt and begin to save money for our next living situation, which we hope would be owning a home. So far, we've done great, paying off all of my wife's student loans and cutting my student loans in half. We've now been living here for 10 months, and it's been good for the most part. Her mom is very nice, and we have come to mutually benefit from all of us moving in with her. We pay her rent, we buy groceries, I do a lot of cooking and yard work, my wife cleans the house, etc. I say all of that to set the stage for how different it has been so far with my brother-in-law now living with us. My brother-in-law originally was living with his dad. My wife's parents divorced in 2020 and didn't have a good relationship with him. He's not a bad person, but he is definitely bipolar. You have to walk on eggshells around him, because at the slightest hint that you're upset with him, he will completely shut down, degrade himself, and say we would be better off if he left us all alone. He is very difficult to talk to, as he will make jokes or references that you may not understand, and then degrade himself if you don't get it. To give you a picture of how difficult it can be to be around him, one time he and I went golfing together. I don't take the game too seriously when I play, and I understand I'm not very good at it. But he, on the other hand, is a pretty good golfer. About 5 or 6 holes in, he's not playing super well. On one hole, he got so frustrated that he took his clubs off the golf cart and said he was going to walk the rest of the round while I rode because he didn't want to bring me down. I told him that he's being ridiculous and would actually be bringing me down more if he decided to walk while I rode in a cart. Fast forward to about a month ago, and he has been kicked out of his dad's house. I say kicked out because the story he tells about how it went down seems more like he was literally asking to be kicked out. His dad asked him to help move some plywood into storage. He complained and questioned why they would need to keep old plywood. They argued back and forth for a little bit, and his dad eventually told him to not help and to just go. My brother-in-law asked him if he was meaning for him to take all of his stuff and dog and move out. His dad kept telling him, just go. Brother-in-law kept pressing and asking if he wanted him to move out or not. The dad eventually says, yes, just take your stuff and go. Him living with us has been very difficult so far. There is a psychology term called self-fulfilling prophecy, and I think he accurately fits the description. He thinks that he is a burden to us and that we resent him for being in our space. So he treats us and talks to us as if we believe that. After a while, it starts to get annoying for him to treat us this way and to degrade himself every chance he gets. So whenever we show any signs of being upset with him, his belief is now confirmed and reinforced. Not only is he tough to be around socially, he does not chip in the same way that we do, or at all, by that matter. If someone has made dinner, he will eat with us, but if not, he goes out and gets fast food for himself. He will eat our snacks and drink what's in the fridge. He doesn't contribute to the groceries. He has a large dog that we have all chipped in to help take care of. At this point, we have taken care of his dog significantly more than he has, buying it food, bathing it because it smelled disgusting, brushing it, etc. His dog is much bigger than our little dog, and when they play, our little dog ends up getting hurt. We now keep our dog upstairs in our room when we have to go to work, out of fear that he may get hurt even more. This past week, we were all having dinner together that my mother-in-law had made. As we're eating, brother-in-law complains about the food, saying that he can make it way better. My wife chimes in and says that we would love to try any of his cooking. I tell my mother-in-law that I think her food is good, trying to make light of the situation, and he tells me that because I had already been married to my wife for 4 years, I don't need to kiss my mother-in-law's butt anymore. I said that I wasn't kissing butt, but I genuinely thought her cooking was fine, and said that the food tastes even better when you don't have to cook it. He told me that I was being shady and proceeded to degrade himself more. I really don't know what to do at this point. My wife is very distraught about the whole situation and feels crazy for feeling like her brother has been acting ridiculous lately. They've tried talking it out before, but it doesn't go well. She has talked with her mom about it, and her mom has decided to try not to take sides. Any advice would be greatly appreciated. Hellfreezer's note, I've got a few things to say here. Your brother-in-law is a dick. Okay, he might be bipolar, but he is a bipolar dick. Right? Don't excuse his terrible behavior just because he's bipolar. He's not a nice person. He knows what he's doing. He's not a child. As far as what your mother-in-law is doing, I understand her point of view. People she cares about are arguing, and one of them is hurting the others, so she thinks, oh, I'm not taking sides, because she cares for everyone involved. But the fact of the matter is, in this situation, where someone is clearly in the wrong, someone is clearly the aggressor in this situation, while your mother-in-law may not intend it, by not taking a side, she is giving license and support to your brother-in-law's behavior, and she is effectively taking his side. You might want to try putting it that way to her, because I don't think she'd look on it the same way if you put it that way. He needs to go is what needs to happen. It doesn't matter what his mental illness is, that's up to him to manage. You don't need to treat him with kid gloves. He is an adult. He is responsible for himself. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Bad Roommates, episode 40. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Before you go, please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And support me on my Patreon page, which is linked in the description. I should also, if I remembered, have a link in the description to the second channel, where you'll be getting the additional content, such as This Week in Hell, and anything else I come up with. There's a Bob Ross documentary I wrote ages ago that I was holding off on, so I'm going to be getting to work on that soon. And I'm still getting my head around doing the Neil Gaiman thing. It's something that needs to be touched on, but I do also I really want to hear what he has to say. And obviously, he's not saying anything right now because that's what his lawyers, his publicity people have said to do, so I'm sure it'll all shake out in the end. Okay, before we go, let's move on to the question of the day. And today's question is, if you had to choose to live next to a man who sings opera every morning to get himself psyched up for the day, or a man who never makes any noise but stares at you every time he sees you, which would you choose? I'd probably go for the opera guy because I could block that noise out easily, and I'd assume he's probably quite a friendly fellow. Yeah, his name's probably George. And, you know, he's full of energy and he just wants to get himself set for the day. George would be alright. The other guy I'd be afraid wanted to kill me. But let me know what you think in a comment below. And before we go, let's take a look at the answer of the day from a previous video. And today's answer comes from Bad Roommates 38 and was about commercials that you saw when you were a kid that just kind of stuck in your head forever and ever. They live there now, that's what happened. And today's answer comes from Emerald Angel, the old Meow Mix commercial where they have the cats meowing the jingle. Even today when I see Meow Mix, I will instantly start meowing the jingle. Thank you very much for your answer, Emerald Angel. And before we go, I have a late birthday shout out to do. This one should actually have gone up, I think, on the 8th, but I forgot. My head was up my butt for a while there. It has been removed. I saw a good proctologist, so there we go. I'll do it now. So I say it's a bit late, but we'll do it. And today's shout out goes to George from GG. This was in plenty of time. It was just my fault that I forgot it. So a very happy birthday to you, George. I hope you had a great time. And make sure you're celebrating and spoiling yourself through to the end of the year. Before I go, I'd like to sing Happy Birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear George Charles. Happy birthday to you. And I hope you had a great one. With that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.